All right, hello. Welcome to the Eddie Conversation Podcast. My name is Eddie V. Hill, and I am your host. This is episode number 59.
59?
And this is it's a special episode of Room of Filmmakers here. I'm sitting with 3 of the 7 filmmakers from the anthology upcoming feature film, currently in crowdfunding phase, titled Through the Blinds. We have T.L. Quach, Sylvia Ray, Luisa, Novo. I had to go from memory. That was the best I got. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So we're gonna experiment with these microphones here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more than just one of us, so we're gonna be passing along and hope for the best.
We'll make it work.
Currently voiceless. Okay.
All right, we'll try our best. I'll just give the rundown on Through the Blind is an anthology feature film of intimate stories that take place over 7 decades under one roof. 7 women directors are on a mission to tell stories of underrepresented communities, and we shall just go from there. Yeah. So I guess we'll go down the line. I'll hand the mic over. I guess we'll figure out our dynamic on microphone stuff. For now you're mute. I'm so sorry. So let's just get a rundown of the individual shorts compiling into this anthology. So let's start with TL here.
Hello. My short is going to take place in 2002, and I have a background in psychological thrillers, and so therefore I wanted to do one for our film here. And so in mine, it's a single mom who comes home to her house having her home being ransacked, and so she kind of gets wrapped up in paranoia, like who's done it, whether it's the neighbors or maybe it's like her ex-husband or something, like, or just maybe someone random. So she just kind of gets wrapped up in her own life, and on top of trying to take care of her kids and going to work and all that. So it's just kind of like a pressure cooker of just all these stresses that she may witness after like this break-in, and how to stay afloat. And yeah, it's super intense and fun at the same time.
Yeah, and all of our shorts go in order. So Tina's is the 6th that we see. Mm-hmm. And then mine is set in the 90s. As a kid who grew up in the 90s, I kind of jumped for that one. I think we all did, but I really, really felt like choosing that decade and telling the story of one of my real life friends that I had when I was growing up, and she was a homeschooled child, and when I would go visit her home, it was just a very unique experience and space that kind of unleashed a lot of memories when we started to write. So basically it's about a girl named Venice, and my short is not solely based on truth. It's inspired by. It's about a girl named Venice, and this is the first time we kind of see a different home. So mine starts off at the neighbor's house, and she ends up hearing lots of friends, or not friends, but lots of like laughter and children laughing, and you learn that Venice, you learn right away that she's kind of a lonely kid. She just lives with her dad, and she's drawn to this house, which ends up being a house full of kids, 3 kids, and they're very religious and homeschooled, and they're not allowed to watch TV. They're kind of cut off from society. And so this is kind of like a new world for Venice. And on the flip side, the friend that she makes, Hannah, Venice is like the touchstone to the outside world because she's kind of trapped there. So that's basically what mine is about. So, and it's called The Neighbors because she's the neighbor.
Mine is the last one. So 90s, 2010s. I share characters with Tina's story. Her character protagonist is the mom, and she has a teenage daughter. And then in mine, the teenage daughter is 30 years old. And my story is about her coming back home to sell the house after mom passes away. and it's her trying to kind of atone for herself why she wasn't there, and she missed a lot of family milestones and just family connection because she was trying to make a career for herself in New York, and she comes back home and she has to deal with all of that, and she also tries to reconnect with her brother, who also has a small daughter who she's not also not been there for. So it's about grief and connection, and it's pre-pandemic, but I guess a lot of pandemic feelings have gone into
Yeah.
the writing. Yes.
I have to say, yeah, we actually formed this right before the pandemic. Like we kind of we took a class with Alliance of Women Directors, directing the actors, and then we were like, oh, we like each other. Let's stay friends. Let's all have a potluck and everything. So we did, and one of the things that we were sharing was that how it was so hard for all of us to make a feature, and so we're like, wait, let's all work together and stuff and make an anthology. And so we just kind of, those ideas started brewing, and as we were starting writing, the pandemic hit, and that's where we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll continue writing and keep working on this for a bit. And it's interesting, actually, we're all the modern times. We're like all our, like all our 50s and 60s peeps are, and all them. Yeah, we're the tail end of the film.
Lovely. Great. Okay. Yeah. So I guess just to clarify for the people, so this project came about. The crowdfunding campaign is currently active through Seed and Spark. I'll throw links in the descriptions and all that sort of thing. I know. As of how we're speaking right now, the project has officially been greenlit via the Seed and Spark model. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
I know, based off speaking, because I had the chance to speak with Jessica Liu, I do want to clarify as well that the current campaign is designed to kind of get the wheels turning on the full production. Like it's mentioned, that making a feature film is hard. It's very difficult. So the current ask, I believe, is towards a pre-production. So I don't know how involved or how the strategy came about, but I do want to clarify that the current amount being asked is to jump into pre-production. There's still more money that could go towards production and all that sort of stuff. So
Correct.
even if you do go to the page and they've reached their goal, there's plenty more.
Yes.
It's still lots of work
Yes.
left to do. So I'm sure there's stretch goals in mind. We can talk about that too. But
Do you want us to also tell you about the other stories? We could, if you want us to. Or not.
I guess
I don't want to speak to it. Sorry, I don't want to speak to it. I don't want to slaughter their log lines or anything. I don't memorize any of them. But definitely on our campaign, there's definitely descriptions of it there, which you can find link below or up, depending on where,
Right.
how it's formatted in YouTube.
And to clarify, each director has a decade starting from the 50s, which Christine,
Giralaga.
Giralaga,
Yeah.
for our first director, does the 50s, and then we have the 60s, 70s, and then 90s, and so on.
Yeah.
So just to clarify that it's all set pretty much in one home through the decades, and theirs connects through family. So this house has a lot of turnover going on.
Yeah.
But we cover a lot of stories, and the themes are pretty cohesive. Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, basically we used the time that we had together as like a writer's room, a built-in writer's room, and we would send each other versions of our scripts, give each other's notes, comments on our scripts and things like that, and then send version by version by version till we got to a point where we were in a vacuum. We were like, we could use some producers now. And so we actually sought out and interviewed several producers to come and join us. And we found Kate Tuxford and Renzo, or Alexander Renzo, but we call her Renzo. And they've been our producers that kind of together we decided to start off with our crowdfunding campaign of basically seed money or starting money to get it off the ground, because that's like, to pay for a line producer to get a really realistic budget for all of these period pieces, is something that we need. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now. We're like trying to lift this plane up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially we're building a better pitch package, essentially to like approach bigger investors and basically, yeah, the people with more money, the millionaires in a way, to essentially, yeah, help support our film and bring it further than where it is now. And yeah, essentially we're raising money for finding a casting director, so therefore we could start seeing talent being interested or maybe signing on to our project, or maybe you can get concept artists to kind of draw up some visuals just to help, I guess, help people visualize what our film could look like. Because, a lot of, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, the concept art could help us reimagine a singular home multiple times, like through different decades. Yeah, just to kind of get things going with the production design.
Yeah, and with one of our stretch goals as well was to find, probably start bringing on a production designer and start conceptualizing and basically making it happen too, so we could see, keep this train moving kind of thing. So.
Amazing. I don't know this. Whenever I'm handed the mic, I'm like, okay, I have to talk now. Okay.
I figured.
I like. No, it's great. It's great. I like the. Yeah, it's going lovely. Okay, so I'm trying to think. I want to hear about, because me being a filmmaker as well, jumping into new projects, I always think about from other creatives' perspectives on what it is on this specific project that that you are kind of challenging yourselves with, or what the next. Or maybe there's an aspect of this type of story you're experimenting in a new direction, or you're switching up a genre, or what specifically for this upcoming one you're most excited about, kind of challenging yourself with outside of.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Up until this film, I've been making, I guess, dramedies. And so the writing of this film was a bit of a challenge, and because it mostly involves children. And I haven't written for children before, and I've only directed my son just last year. And so writing for a child and imagining what it would be like to cast them and work with them. Working with them, I feel less challenged because I'm a mom and I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, so I feel like other kids would be a breeze because my kids would be very difficult. So yeah, basically that for me is what's new, and it's more along. There's a bit of levity to my film, but it's more on the dramatic side. Yeah.
Yeah. So what age are you writing for in the
8, and there's a range. So there's a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, and a bit of an older one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So they're altogether there's 4.
Okay.
Yeah, there were more.
So I guess you mentioned it's difficult to do the writing aspect potentially. How would you approach dialogue and all that kind of? How'd you jump into
that? The dialogue was a little bit interesting because the family that lives in the home that our house is, they're different. They didn't grow up with TV. They don't socialize with public school kids. They speak differently. And I only have that from my experience, what they would say. Like, do they say mother versus mom? Or, they're definitely not going to say mama. So that was kind of just real fun creativity stuff. And then for my protagonist, Venice, I just had to think about what I would say when I was younger.
Right. Because I know criticisms can sometimes be when you're watching it's like kids would never, they're speaking like adult, it's always I don't think I've ever written for kids, so I know it's this whole thing. Louisa, you wanna?
I don't know exactly. My character is very much like myself, so I don't think that's a challenge. And I drew very much from like me. I am gonna do a lot of, because it's a lot about text messages and emails coming in, and I am gonna do that like in post, which I haven't done before. So I'm like researching the best way of presenting that kind of visual, because it's all over my script. She's alone in the house. She doesn't really talk to people. She has like two calls and that's it. Everything else is she's typing, she's receiving an email, she's reading a text. So I guess my challenge would be in the best way to present that. Interesting is also like what serves the story best, because it's like important. It like serves the story and serves the character. Um, but everything else is kind of a lot of my other shorts. About well, I have written for teenagers before. I have a short that's like takes with a 15-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But the others were with adult women, and they're all kind of at a crossroads in their life. So I got that in common. Like, I guess it's a common thread in my stories. And it's definitely a drama. It's definitely a drama.
Okay, so a lot of the thoughts are going into how to shoot it and able to creatively display like all the text and all that kind of, that's kind of like the new thing for you to play with, because I know like challenging oneself isn't, I mean, there's so many ways to challenge yourself as a director, because there's infinite department well, there's not infinite departments, but there's so many departments. Like, I know, like, for, I don't, like, having a whole, I don't, because I don't know, I guess, the background specifically on each of the short films you've developed before, or how big are the crews you worked with, or maybe it's like a challenge to like, I'm actually going to have a full scale team for the first time, or um yeah.
I honestly can't wait to have a full scale team because like a lot of my shorts are like $300. So, and actually, I feel with this film, it's more of a elevated version of all the things I've made. I did work with kids before, and they're fun. They're just themselves. They're easy for the most part if you cast them right. And I also worked with prop guns before, which is also my film. But then I have 5 kids in my thing, prop guns. I also have a dog in it, which that's one thing I haven't had before, a pet or like an animal in. Because one of the things that the protagonist does, she's like, no dogs or whatever. And then, she has like she gets paranoid at one night because like someone's rummaging through her trash or whatever like that, and then she's like, oh shit, like I need to like grab, get something to like protect my kids or whatever, and then she just like immediately gets a dog because that's, she's just kind of reacting on survival in that sense. So that's something that's very new. I would never worked with a dog before, but yes, I do have like a lot of characters, but I think it's definitely it needs to be there because it's a very, it's more of a family. No, I wouldn't say family film, but there's maybe in my household there's a family film. I was actually watching Nobody, the action movie, the other day, and I was watching it, and I was like, I would watch this with my family because it's just a family film to me. Anyway, well, in my sense, I guess my film is a family film, but there's a family in it, and then the protagonist, she has a sister who also has a family, and then also dealing with the neighbors who has a family. So it's a very, I guess, well-rounded in that sense. And since I am also purposely casting them as Southeast Asian, and I just feel like the family and that idea is just very strong. And so it just, as we were brainstorming about the ideas of how our films would be in terms of like our themes about what is home like that was immediately what I had in mind, where it's like, okay, a family, and what is home for me meant for me, it was like, oh, protection. And at least that's how I was taught, where when you have things you protect it. And that kind of added to the theme of the script of just like, okay, how will this one woman protect her whole family and then also like everything else in her life. And
Yeah, I think home was like the big touchstone. Like, what does home mean to you? What does home mean to a woman? And you know, I think for me, particularly, when I think of home and memory, I think about memories in more of a nostalgic place. Like, I'm building a home for myself now, but when I think of home, it's my childhood, my mother, basically my friends' houses, because I was literally there all of the time because I was lonely at home pretty much. So yeah, I feel like that was a big touchstone when we sought out to write is, what does home mean to you? And then the challenge, I think the through line for all of us will be, how do we make this feature film? And you've made a few yourself. Like, we could do it on our own, and we are actively trying to do that for ourselves as directors, trying to direct our feature film, our premiere feature. But having us as a group work on this together has been such a huge support system, and it's bleeding into our other projects. So what we learn on this film, each step of the way, it's going to affect how we approach our individual features. So that's like the challenge. That's the something new for all of us, is doing something bigger, like a feature. Yeah.
I was going to ask TL. You're mentioning that the previous shorts that you had made were in the the very small budget range. You're looking forward to having more of a support system on set around you. What I guess if I can ask it could be a two-parter across the board too. But like, what's the thing you're most excited about in that vein specifically, with having, like, if there's a specific crew member you're just like, I can't wait to have a script supervisor next to me, actually, like watching for the logistical stuff, or the there's another word for that.
Things that make it easier.
Yes, things to make it easier. So there's the thing that you're like, I can't wait for this person to take some weight off my shoulders, and then there's also like, oh no, this person is this. I don't know how to communicate with this person, and I'm afraid. There's some fear-based stuff in the creative. Yeah.
It's mostly that I could actually pay my friends. Like one of my sets, my last big short film was Rule of Threes, and it was a post-apocalyptic short film. And I had like a cinematographer who volunteered, who normally directs or like DPs like commercials, and he was actually my cinematography teacher when I took like a cinematography class like way back when, and he was like, yeah, I'll help out, and then I was like, thank you. And the fact that he spent the whole weekend shooting for that, like that, he's only one example. I didn't pay the actors. I did have an AD. I did have a script supervisor. I had all the necessary roles that needed to be there. But clearly they're all doing this for free and volunteering to help me because they believed in me. And so it'd be nice to give back in that sense, where it's like, oh, I'm so glad I could pay you. and then have more, and then just do things properly. And safely, for sure. I mean, yes, we definitely, we had a gun, like a prop gun, wasn't loaded, clearly. We did have people who were like, knew where it was and what, that, and we handled it very well. And yeah, it was, and then we also, like, in the scenes that we did have to, like, necessarily fire it, like, well, it looked like I was as if we're firing it because it's not loaded or anything. But anyway, essentially, yes, do things safely. And orderly, rather than just kind of this everybody does everything kind of thing. Like I had friends who like was the data loader and also a grip kind of thing, and it was great that everyone was hands on in that sense. But yeah, mainly for like the scales, like having a larger scale is just nice to just give back to people who have been helping me for such a long time.
I think, well, my last project was a workplace comedy web series pilot. And I think that's the biggest crew I ever had. But still, like, I had one person in art, like one production designer. I really wish I could give her a bigger team. I had one costume designer and I never worked with a costume designer before. So I'm looking forward to have somebody actually handle all of that without me, having to be so hands-on. Before that, was like my makeup artist was my friend, and she she also helped me choose. It's like, actors, bring all your clothes. I like that, I like that, I like that. Great, that's your call. Like actually have put a little bit more thought in that. But I think those costumes and production design is something that I'm looking forward to having a lot more help with. And the whole feature is period. Mine is the one that's easier, but like, I think our whole project is very production design heavy. So I'm looking forward to all of us having a lot of help.
Yeah, one thing frustrating is kind of like, we as directors, yes, we need like stuff on our portfolio, but how do we do that? We have to find the money. And like, where do we get the money? Oh, from our own pockets, kind of thing. So it's that constant thing of just like, okay, let's try to shoot something. Okay, let's just spend only $200, kind of thing, and just kind of be creative with that, which does add creativity, but it is, like nice where we could just, again, not like feel like there's a class thing or a financial gap that we have to keep facing each time. Yeah. Speak to.
I was just going to say that with just seeing what is happening with our crowdfunding campaign and how successful it's been in just the short amount of time that we've had it live, I'm really hopeful that we would get a healthy, comfortable budget for our film because there's 7 of us and we are pulling from our networks. There are many people who are supporting us and who believe in us and who want to see us succeed. Also, just the fact that the project is really like cool and interesting. It's 7 women directors telling their story about a home and what home means to them. I feel like just concept wise, people have been really kind of stoked about it, which is really fun to see.
Yeah, and I crowdfunded before for like my last short, and this is the second time I'm crowdfunding, and there's like so much other random people donating, and it's freaking amazing, and that just shows that people want this to happen. Like Mark Duplass dropped money for us, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
So that's like shows that this is content that people that audience does need.
Right. And we dream, we have dreams. And the idea of getting picked up as a mini series or something like that is very enticing because then we can have like potentially a second season with the same blueprint where there's other women directors that are working on something like this. Like it's just like the possibilities are kind of endless and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and we could create jobs. Sorry, I keep hogging the mic. And we could create jobs for women. It's from underrepresented communities. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Great. Great. No, I love all that. I keep up on the Instagram through the Blinds IG, and I did see the share about Mark Duplass and stuff, and that was super cool.
Yeah.
And then thinking about Mark Duplass too, I know, like I think about his one show on HBO, The Room 104. Mm-hmm. Feels very similar to this idea where you have the one location, keep it producible, quotes on that. Where you have the one set and you're just rotating the art and you're rotating the cast and the crew.
It's very true, but I don't think, at least not consciously, none of us is like, oh, there's something very similar. Do you know that we could do that? Like, actually, I think it's an afterthought, but it's true.
Yeah. No, it's most likely a happenstance, but I know. Because we all come up with ideas, and as somebody points out, oh my gosh, I don't know, somebody did do, this is
we have no issues being compared to Mark Duplass.
And the cool thing about that show is that the episodes are wildly different, and I feel like within our anthology, like you really can see the different directing and writing styles within the scripts, and we'll have a visual cohesiveness, but you'll feel a difference. Yeah.
Okay, that segues into the next question. You talk about visual cohesiveness. I guess that's like me as a fan of seeing this movie come to life. I am very curious on, because when I think about anthologies, I don't have much experience with watching anthologies, so this is very interesting for me too. Where I know I've heard of like horror anthologies where it's a bunch of horror shorts together. I don't know how much cohesiveness they have, or if it's just within the genre. But this, I imagine, because there's the location tying it all together, and plus the final 2 are literally connected as well, that there's lots of opportunity to actually have a little bit more of a succinct message throughout all of the pieces. But I am curious to hear about. I don't know if I was going to ask about the specific visualness on how, if there's anything specific that everybody's thinking about to pull it together. But I also want to talk about the individual voices but let's stick with the cohesiveness things that you brought that up.
Well, we talk about this a lot. And one of the ideas is to bring in potentially one DP to work on it. Although we're not sold on a particular decision on that. And then as far as script writing goes, we really wanted to find a cohesive several through lines that we can weave through maybe every other script or every other or throughout each script. And so we do have visual elements and callbacks throughout our scripts. Because like I said, we worked this out like a writer's room. We worked together to we really commented on each other's stuff.
Nice.
A lot.
So I guess just to clarify too, the location in the story is the literal same location through all the stories.
Yes.
Okay.
Except my short is the only one that deviates from that. Yeah, mine starts off at the neighbor's house, but then you peek in and you see, that's the house we all know. And then we pop back in.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I think the first visual element that we talked about was a fireplace. I guess it became from like the feeling of home and warmth and just homely. I don't know the word. So we have a fireplace that shows up as a plot point in most of our scripts. Is either something that has a particular prop that's important or something happens in it. And we also, at first, we chose Southern California, and we're sticking to that at the moment. We discussed many places, like, should this be at another place in the US? Where should it be? So we kind of are still with the architecture of this place, and the weather of this place. We have an earthquake that happens at one point early on that brings stuff to the house that we see visually throughout. Some flashbacks in an acid trip that has callbacks to previous shorts. So we have all sorts of stuff.
I love it. Nice. Awesome. I'm just looking at the rain outside currently. It's very speaking of the weather.
Yeah, it's very non-Southern California.
Okay. So then jumping into, I am curious on the specific creative journeys as individuals as well, because I know like even just on the Through the Blinds website, for instance, like each director has a little bit of a, succinct bio, and I hate putting bios together. It's always the worst thing ever. It's like, who are you, and define yourself in 3 sentences, please. So, thinking about developing your voice and as a creative and a filmmaker, how did you get to? I don't know. Not how did you develop your voice, but I don't know. I don't know what the question is. I just want to. How did you land? How did you find your voice?
Find what you like.
How did you do it? And or question, have you found it? But because I feel like it's a constant evolving thing. But in terms of like potentially other directors or upcoming filmmakers that want to kind of take a piece of they're looking for their voice, like what was something you did to help discover yours?
Finding my voice. Well, I always knew that I wanted to direct psychological thrillers. Like, well, I wouldn't say always. I knew from when I was in college, and I watched. I studied film theory in college, and the one class was Japanese cinema, and that was cool. And then one film that I watched was Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Really intense, and I remember being like for my whole life being really scared of psychological thriller or just horror films, really, because it's like it's scary. But then when I watched it and it made me question like morals and anxieties and stuff like that, it's just like that, I guess, I like how it's a really confrontational platform that kind of makes your mind churn a little bit, kind of like Memento and all that stuff, where you like you kind of flip everything on its head and just kind of start thinking things and seeing things in a different way. So at least from there, when I was more serious about filmmaking, I knew that I wanted to do psychological thrillers specifically. Like I remember when I moved to New York and started working on film sets as a production assistant, people were like, "Wow, you're very specific." It's like, no, I knew this is what I want to do. I just need to figure out how the hell to get there, kind of thing. We could swear, right? Okay. I don't know. And then, yeah, and I think there was a lot of influence that did shape it, which I came to realize, I guess, maybe later on, where let's be honest, a lot of our films that we watch and like get inspired by are like white dudes or just dudes, really, like, and a lot of my influences are those guys, or even like Asian directors who like are primarily majority male. So it's like for me, like, clearly I'm not that person. So I was leaning more so on myself, and a lot of horror, and thrillers. It's like about women's fears, and what is that I lean on, that was like, what do I want to tell among those women's fears, and how is that significantly different from men's fears, which I guess I won't know. But even so, like just like being really delved into really involved in watching all these films, like there are a lot of female characters that are written and directed by men, like something like Rosemary's Baby. Like I was in a bar one time and this dude was like, "Don't you think like Rosemary's Baby is like the most accurate depiction of the fear of childbirth?" And I was like, "No, dude, it's Roman Polanski. Like, how can you say that? You have no clue. You can't say it's accurate. Sure, it's fearful, and it's in the fear of eyes of Roman Polanski, which is even more terrifying. But that's not an accurate depiction of fear of childbirth." So anyway, so I've been seeing this a lot, where it's just like in recent movies as well, that it's just like, okay, here's like a female character, here's childbirth or whatever, or just stuff, and and it's just like they could just do so much more, but of course, but they don't have the capacity to, which is fine. I'm glad they don't need to know what childbirth is like or any other female pains. But it is something that finding my voice in a sense, like using taking advantage that I am a woman and like the things that I think about, and I'm a very anxious person. Oh yeah, and just leaning in on that. And another thing, you're also leaning on our backgrounds in a way. There was a moment where like a lot of my peers, my Asian American peers, were like, "Well, you should direct with white actors because therefore people will take you more seriously, or it wouldn't be that Asian film," kind of thing. And that was just a thing, and that at that time too, it was like, unfortunately, that was a standard. And so that was annoying. But leaning in on like my background, my parents are actually refugees from Vietnam. We're ethnically Chinese, and there's a lot about survival that at least my parents taught me about, and just kind of getting influence about that, their thinking process, and why they do the way they do, and why they act the way they act, and just kind of basically adding that into and like everyday life, really, like even like shoes in the house. Oh my God, it's like life or death. Like, oh my, something like that. Yeah, so it's like the little thing, like even the minute things that could have high stakes for some reason, and yeah, essentially adding that into filmmaking. So.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say no. That sounds no, awesome to me. Just like, okay, so two things. You said in the beginning that you kind of had a genre in mind that kind of you gravitated toward, and you've just been shaping yourself towards that from the beginning, which is awesome. Because I know it's difficult to even just like learn what certain genres are and get good at that one thing. So being able to craft yourself towards that, I think, is great, and knowing that is lovely to know. And then understanding that when you look at that genre, you're like, there's a lot of missed opportunities here because of the perspectives of who's telling the stories. Like, just understanding that your perspective is unique and you have something unique to bring to it, I think is an awesome lot of opportunity to mix it up there and give something different, which is also great.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a follow up?
You said it very eloquently. Like, I don't know how to follow up with that. But yeah, I think that's the amazing part of our group is like we all have something to offer that's totally different from like a default that we've been presented from the beginning. Okay, you guys can talk now.
I don't know if I have a voice, specifically like as far as drama goes at least. When I write, it becomes very female oriented. All the stuff I wrote are female protagonists, and they are all dramas. I mean there's levity to it. There's like different levels of heavy. But like one of my very first shorts in film school here is about a woman that cuts herself. And then the one, my thesis in Brazil, is about this lonely woman who cannot make friends, and she sees a robbery that makes her like go like start seeing things, and mix reality with fiction. And then another one is about a woman that dies from an abusive husband, and the other is about a teenager. So it's a little, so like I said, like turning points of like women's story. But then I decided I wanted to direct Breakland. It's a comedy, and I really enjoyed it. I have yet to know if I have a specific point of view on it, different than other people, and not just like generic. But I watch a lot of comedies. So what I write about is not necessarily what I consume the most, which is interesting to me. But I would love to do both. I just am more versed in drama right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you recently dove into experimenting with the comedy side. What pushed you to pivot on that?
Just basically, my friend had an idea I liked, and I didn't write it. I don't think I could write comedy. I don't have aspirations to be a writer, which
Okay.
I keep saying, and people keep telling me, but I honestly don't. I have no interest in putting so much effort into something. I think it might be mediocre. So, my friend had this idea, and he didn't want to direct it. And I was like, okay, let me direct it. And it was me just learning and researching everything I already watched it. And it's a very broad type of comedy. It's a workplace type of TV show. So I had a lot of stuff to pull from. So that's why I say I don't know how unique my point of view is, but at least I can do it as good as other people.
Luisa has a great point of view. I think, yeah, Breakland was really hilarious and funny, and it was like the first comedy I ever seen you make, and it was fucking funny. Yeah, so I think we don't know what's in us sometimes when we sit down to write, or when we are editing or making things, and sometimes a project has a life of its own, right? Where it's just like, that's what's happening with this project, and there it is,
Yeah.
But we can try to sculpt and mold as much as we can. But yeah, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, I also think about the filmmaking process as just as a director climbing the ranks. From my perspective, there's often a feel of whenever you try to elevate to the next level, there's these uncertainties there. There's the, can I do this there? So then sometimes you're just trying to just survive the moment and get through. And you don't really have time to be like, I'm just trying to give some direction and make it look like I'm directing here.
Well, and everybody has an opinion about what you should or shouldn't be doing,
right?
How to get to the next level.
So building the confidence in yourself to trust the gut, and because the gut is really, I guess, in the end, who you are. It's like when you come to like what's funny in the moment, or regardless. But I know it is hard to through all the chaos around you to really focus in on like, wait, who you have to be. It's the confidence has to be. You got to build that up to be able to stand in that storm and stand with your voice and who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I feel like, when you're editing, like there's a certain beat where it's funny and then there's a certain beat where it's not. Like, and that's, relative to who you are as a person. And yeah, I feel like you're right. A lot of it is gut and intuition. And that's kind of where I've landed too. Cause in the beginning, in the hustle, it could be like, oh, like what can I make? Who can I meet? How could I, whatever, get to the next place. But then, as I like settle into this profession and have stronger collaborations with my colleagues and my friends, like at a certain point, it gets to a point where I'm just like, I want to just make stuff that I like. But
Yes.
yeah, right.
Yes,
And have fun.
Better than doing stuff you don't like.
Yeah, like, and also, try to say what it is you want to say or have the impact you want to have. Those are always questions that I have for myself. But I feel like my genre that I gravitate towards and that I've made up until this point has been drama comedies or dramedies. I love, broad comedy. It's really fun also to direct, to just have these amazing actors just like say funny jokes on the fly and just try not to laugh behind the camera. Like that's a good time. But that being said, I like sci-fi. I like all of the good movies. I just watched West Side Story. I like musicals. I think one day I will direct a musical. I'd like to direct a going to space movie one day. I know though that like there's a breakthrough, in order to break through into television or that budget or whatever, like people need to understand what it is you make well. And so I would say right now for me, it is the woman-centric dramedy. Yeah.
That's a great point, because for me, sometimes I always say like I'm actually a one-trick pony, where it's really like a woman of whatever random age it is, and then what I guess trauma she goes through, and it all varies, and that's what makes it more interesting in terms of like at least for the other filmmakers out there finding their voice and stuff, just sticking to like this specific theme. Like mine is mostly about survival and whatever the situation, and normal people, which is like mostly women, like and these things that are happening to them and how that they react to those situations. And so a lot of that kind of reflects in a lot of my writing. Like my other feature is about Stockholm syndrome and how this teenage girl will deal with like this situation. And then my next feature I wrote that I really need to rewrite is about like a young adult who's going through transgenerational trauma, like things like that. Even though the structure is similar, it is having different types of topics that we kind of surround, like the survival aspect, and also again the women's fear aspect that I really want to keep diving into, because we clearly don't have just one fear. So at least we wish we had only one fear.
Okay. Great segment there. I'll pivot us a little bit. I wanted because I don't talk about this is it's a simple process thing. I want to talk about casting. I feel like, let's just say for Through the Blind specifically here, there's a lot of stories coming up, and there's a lot of a lot of actor opportunity potentially for roles that aren't, for stories that aren't typically told as often as these actors would prefer to act in. So and there's actors watching right now wondering, like, cast me, how are you going to cast me? So how do you go through that process? How do you sift through the faces, through the performances, and is there something that sticks out, or maybe for this one, what are your plans for maybe ideal, I don't know, or the past, all the above? That's my best attempt at a question.
That's a tough question. Like because we're all different and our stories require different things. Like I know in mine, like I'm purposely gonna cast them as Southeast Asian, and I'm really doing that mostly because I felt like an Asian American like cinema lately. It is mostly East Asians that are being featured, like something like in Crazy Rich Asians. Like a lot of them are like of East Asian descent, even though Singapore is a huge mixed bag of like different ethnicities and stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to like a part of my story is the microaggressions that the single mother is facing, not only being a woman and like single mother, and also she's brown too on top of that. Like the idea, just like all this stuff is just really like beating in her head about how I guess less of she's not, but it's just like that idea that society makes her less of. And unfortunately that's not necessarily like we're trying to uplift women and I wanted, that was one way of me trying to uplift, like say like maybe cast someone who's Filipino or like Laotian or Hmong or the communities that we don't like. I'm sure a lot of people that is outside of the Asian American community probably won't know. And so for me, I don't know. Like I probably had to do a lot more research to see if there's any other actors who are more named. But I'm actually perfectly fine if it's non-name actors because we are making their careers as well in this film.
Mine and Tina's are so intertwined.
Yeah, I think
That
that's interesting too. Yeah, there's that
yeah,
element of it.
I think it's gonna be her casting first because the mom and hers, I can use the same actress. The age difference is like not that hard, but whoever she casts as the teenage daughter, or maybe we can even like do the other way around. I cast my main actors, and then she has to cast the teenage daughter based on what mine look like. But we are gonna share actors. I have flashbacks, so I'm gonna use her teenage daughter as well. I am gonna use her mom. I am gonna use the brother, which is younger. It's 8 years old, I think, or 9. I forgot. So I guess we're gonna have to go together on this one. But I think casting is super important. I have gotten better at it. I think with Brooklyn, I had to do it by myself. I didn't pay anybody. So it was a lot. I saw a lot of people in comedy. I was like, I have never done it before. It's got to be somebody that's already good. Like I can't just. Yeah, like at least we did I wasn't banking on it. So so I watched a lot of people. It was a gut instinct. It was like I saw the tape and I just knew it. I kind of knew it. Like and there was one character that was it was the last to cast. Like I had everybody else, and I was like, I still haven't found this person. I'm gonna have to keep searching because it was important. And I think this is an approach. And it's I don't know. Like once you work with actors a good amount of time, I guess you just get better at understanding their craft. But it's still the part of filmmaking that I least understand because I have never done it.
Acted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've done in film school. It's not good. They don't want to see it. And they keep telling us, directors, you should take an acting class. You should do this. And I have considered, just never really put the trigger on it. So.
Yeah, so we met in a directing the actors class. I love actors. I think they're special people. And I did theater in high school. I don't call myself an actor because I think that I don't have that aspiration, one, and I'm not working hard to be an actor. So, and I know that there's a lot of work that's involved. So I've been fortunate enough to work with really great actors who I also call my friends. And typically when I'm casting, I have someone in mind. When I'm reading something or writing something, I pull from my network of actors that are talented already and hopefully won't charge a bunch. But for this one, most of my cast are children, and so it will be heavily, I will be relying on a casting director and looking at tapes and and yeah, just seeing how it goes from there.
Great. Okay, I'm thinking from the actor's perspective here. I'm like, but you didn't
Are you an
tell
actor?
It's like, no,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't act. I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes and be like, well, you didn't tell me how you're gonna cast me. I'm just, no. It was mentioned that you just know, like you watch tapes and you're like, and there's something that pops out. It's hard to really differentiate why. I mean, this one made me laugh. This one didn't make me laugh. It was the same line, similar beat. So there's that sort of thing too. And then I'm curious as well for like when you get the East Asian mother actors, like the actors all audition, like you have 15 of them in front of you that are all submitting the pieces, like the differentiator on what you look for, even on the communication, like the back and forth of whether it's in a room or whether you're asking for tapes, like what you ask of an actor to really differentiate if they're right for the role via if it's the signs that you give or yeah.
You asked her. Oh,
Go ahead. I guess you could go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think that there's nothing that you can do really except, do the work, come in and do your best. And then as a director, you just kind of, you can be surprised sometimes when reviewing tapes and be like, oh, I didn't imagine that role to be like interpreted in this way. It's really interesting, and that's always fun. But I think that it's hard to kind of guess what it is that the director is looking for. It's, I think, all about the text, doing your work, and then going in and being as not as nervous as you can be, and then just authentic and to the role. And then, man, I had something I was going to say, but I forgot about that. But anyway. Yeah, it'll come back.
Yeah, I think when we took that directing the actor class, I made it a thing to have lunch with these actors, or mostly within my network, because they're part of the exercise. And I just at that time I just moved to New York. From New York to LA, so I didn't really have a huge network. But like, yeah, I essentially sat down with them and talked about their background and just kind of dive into like see what their emotional resources is like, and what they could take out of like are willing to share. And I think with a lot of my films, they're all very intense. And so whatever they could bring out in them, whether if they do have like a refugee background like mine, like, okay, think about your crazy parents, kind of thing, or not crazy. They're just very unsurvivable a lot because of what they had to, to do to survive. And yeah, basically drawing from that and how far they could go with it.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. And also what you were saying brings something to mind too. Emotional range is really important. But understanding, like in an audition, or for example, I always like to give a note or two just to see if that actor would take the note, which would show emotional range. And so that's really important to me as a director when casting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember casting for my other short film, Rule of Threes. Yeah, this is one guy we auditioned. It was just like no matter what note we gave him, it was the same thing. And so I was like, it was a cold read, but still, it was just kind of like yeah, like all right, let's. Yeah, he just couldn't try anything different. He didn't get the part. Sorry.
I think definitely come prepared. I have had people like not even know what character like they were auditioning for. It's like, didn't I book you? Like you're scared. Like you should at least know what character you're here for. I have had that. And I think there's also good actors and good actors for the part. Those are distinct things. Like it's just a thing. Like they can even read in a way that you liked, but it's just like the character has a through line, and like where it's just different. They're only reading a scene, and you might keep them in mind for other projects. I have had that, like oh, I remember this actor, but it's just not for this part, and you're never gonna know. Unfortunately, all you know is the scene. All you have is the sides. You can probably Google the director and see what else is done if you are but I don't know how much that will help really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm also thinking about the little bit of the intangibles aspect too, with the showing up on time, the like you said, you sat down and you conversed with the actors and kind of get a sense of their background. How open are they with you? How vulnerable are they being with you? How much do they trust you? That building that trust back and forth. I don't know, like maybe social media. I don't know if you would go to like their Instagram and be like, how does this person present themselves? Like, I don't know how far that goes, but I know it was also mentioned that sometimes there is a character written with a specific actor already in mind, which kind of helps streamline that process too. But then there's always so many characters built around that we're not really. I don't know, but that's me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that goes with any creative collaboration is like,
Mhm.
do they communicate well? Are they ghosting me? I've had that before. You know, when working professionally with anybody, you know, I do have a standard where, you know, at least call or write me back like within a reasonable time frame.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard a laugh, so I tried to hand the mic. Didn't work out. Okay. So next topic. I'm curious as to. I'll ask a broad question first, then we can kind of hone in a little bit closer. I don't know if anybody has a thought on this, but the question is, what does being a director mean to you?
That was hilarious. What does a director mean to me? Definitely the person with the vision. Me and Tina, we work as ADs. We have been in many sets with directors, and it's like I have seen directors like they don't know what they're doing. It's like everybody can call themselves a director, doesn't mean they are a director. You definitely need to know the material. Definitely need to have a overall vision of the whole. And you need to be a leader. Like you have to collaborate with your crew. You can't be afraid of them. You hire. I think casting and hiring the right crew it makes the project. So that's also kind of the job of the director. Like how I would be very hands on in hiring all these people. At least so far, we haven't been in a big budget yet. I don't know if we do a Marvel movie, we have time to like pick every single person, but right now, I think it's very important, and they need to understand you're auditioning them too. Like they need to understand what you're going for. They need to have the right tools to elevate what you're going for. Just as we specialize in some stuff, some other people specialize in some stuff in their departments as well. So it's about knowing who to pick. And on set, you gotta be a leader. You cannot hide behind the door where yeah, that happens. I don't know, like people who disappear because they get freaked out. You have to like his face.
You are the captain of the ship. God damn it. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things that I'm also an AD and I feel that way too. And it's also, but I know there's different directing styles where people will tend to like the more of improvisation and all that. Everyone has to be more on board on that, you know. But ultimately, you're the captain of the ship, and yet vision is so like imperative because to make things smooth, it starts from the top, and not only about the creatively, but also safety wise. Like we're all responsible for safety, and we're also all responsible for the creative process of this. But we have to. There needs to be a leader of that, and that is like maybe some directors don't feel that huge responsibility, but it is there. You know?
Yeah, and I think I hear that a lot on interviews with directors that I watch. Like you're there to answer questions. You're gonna throw a question. You have to have an answer for that. Have to have an answer for that. Have to answer that. In order for everybody to do their job, you need to have an answer for them.
And if they don't have an answer, you just say, I don't have an answer. What's your suggestion? Kind of thing. That collaborative, like, I guess, exchange with that. Because, yeah, of course, like, one person can't have all the answers. But it's like that's where you have to guide them to it. Yeah.
But, like, pick a caller. They'll say, ah! I don't know a caller.
Yellow or red?
Pick a caller.
Go ahead, Sylvia.
Oh, I'm not gonna disagree with the ADs here. No, everything that they're saying is absolutely right, and I feel that in my bones too. And for me, directing is something that I feel very privileged to be able to do, and just the act of filmmaking and directing to me is my form of expression, and yeah, so I think with that comes a lot of vision and making sure that your team knows what's happening, and then making sure that your team also feels emboldened too, like to do their job well and to make the best film that can possibly be made.
I must say too, a lot of us aren't from extremely privileged background where it's just like, here's a directing role, go ahead, kind of thing. We all work as like our own like business leaders, really. Like we to even start this campaign, we have to learn how to form an LLC and all this stuff. So directing, at least for myself, as someone who's not connected, it's being essentially like running a startup in that sense, being like a CEO of something, like a just kind of like constantly, like what shaped me for a director is actually being more of a better business person, and being well-rounded in a lot of different ways to try to get to that certain direction. So it's not only about working on set, it's really all the stuff around it, writing a script, like I know Luisa doesn't like to write, but it's like that's something that's expected of us.
Does anyone like to write?
I exist somehow.
That kind of thing. It's like it honestly, for directing, it really makes me like, I guess, makes me grow a lot bigger of a person. Or not a bigger person, but just kind of like this journey. It's mostly about the journey of just kind of growing in that sense, and that's what directing has allowed me to be, and rather being a better business person, better creative, and all these different layers of better communicator. My parents are not the best communicators, and it's not their fault, but I worked on it so much for all these years and building confidence, because I don't have a lot of confidence, and that's something that I keep working on, and there's never an ending like finish line on that, but that's what the process of directing leads me there, and that's what at least directing means to me.
And I think story as well. Even if it's commercial, it's all about story and character. Story and character. I don't like to write, but I need to know what a story is. I need to know how to make a cohesive film that makes sense. You'll be surprised at how much stuff you see that does not make sense. And and direct, you need to know all the tools. You don't need to be an expert on everything. Like, I'm not a big camera person, but you need to be able to know basics of everything, because you need to know what works for the story. So yeah, my addendum.
I was gonna ask about running a set. I know it was brought up, like setting a tone, being the captain of the ship.
Captain, oh captain.
Anything in particular? I guess I'm thinking about like little things, like when we break for lunch, where does the director hang out? Where do you like what? Is that a time to catch up on stuff and go with some other heads, or do you hang out with the cast, or do you hang out with the crew?
As an AD, unless I don't have questions for the director, I need to catch up with him at lunch for the next day. Unfortunately, unless if you did a prep like marvelously, and everything is running smoothly, which it's usually not the case. You have questions that need answers, and usually, unfortunately, lunch is a good time that AD's working, the director's working, some head of departments are working. They're all talking, they're looking at the call sheet, and they are talking about the next day.
So also as an AD, I really don't like working during lunch. And also as an introvert, like I know I don't sound like it, but I am a huge introvert, and lunch is the time where I'm going to run away and sleep and just kind of like, because being on set and everything is overstimulating. Yes. And highly overstimulating. And I know there's questions that needs to be answered, but at the same time, even for the crew too, they need a break as well. So I wouldn't want to like pressure, if we could help it, pressure them to work during lunch.
I could never help it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it all depends. You know, like the short film that I did last year, during lunch, we were all having a picnic in the garden and having a nice talk. So, what do you need, Luca? Okay, this is my son.
Whoops.
So yeah, it was a bit more relaxed, and that was like the last day. But the day before, we were running a little bit behind, and we just had to work through lunch. Yeah, I mean, it just depends.
Yeah.
Each set I think has its own little different ecosystem.
Yeah, so when I guess when I direct, like
You want
she-
pistachios?
she-
You have nuts in your room. Sorry.
um, right, my sets. So well, I do a lot of prep, and I go in knowing like the shots that I need and everything, and I basically edit it in my brain beforehand. So for the most part, I have a game plan, and I know how to compromise on that. Of what if we running out of time and stuff. So with lunch, like again, that's like a sacred moment where we just need a break and stuff. So at least like I could relax and everyone could relax. And granted, the past sets I worked on is all my friends, so I wouldn't wanna. I will just chill with them because they're my friends, and some of them I haven't seen for a very long time, and they're helping me randomly on this weekend or something. So yeah, essentially, because ultimately it's still a collaborative, experience, and it's not as much as it can form into work and all that stuff. But yeah, sorry,
No,
I
it's
feel nervous knowing what to say. No, but yeah, as long as you do the prep, lunch is you could relax and kind of thing. And yes, of course, like if there's little kinks we talk about, but yeah, I don't want to pressure everyone. I think like for myself, I will like to keep on having the mentality that these are my collaborators and not my employees.
As a director on my short films, I never had to work through lunch. The last one was pretty smooth too. Like, we didn't go over time because I kind of AD myself too. Like, exact compromise is a very big word and very important. You need to know exactly what you can cut, what you can, to make your day. If you just expect the AD or all the other departments to make the day for you, you're not the captain of the ship. You really need to be aware of everything and like to make your day. If you need to compromise, you gotta compromise. Yeah, like I think, but also I think our budgets and how big our projects are, they haven't been that big yet. So it's a very different environment for sure. It's way more camaraderie, way more relaxed, especially because we kind of produce it as well. Like we have our hands in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely like we know everything that's going on. Nobody has to come and ask us.
Great. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Yeah. I guess I was also. I mean, you kind of touched on it. I was curious about the ideal, maybe the ideal director lunch, which you kind of talked about. Like from the AD side, I gotta bug the director because we're not on top of this. But when you're directing, it's a different story because there's some AD background. I don't know if
No, not an AD. Yeah. But when I prep like an editor, I guess you would say. Like I edit freelance, and I'm typically editing my own films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, been there.
Yeah. So when I'm creating a shot list, I only write in what it is I need for my edit, and so typically when I plan for my day, like I will do kind of like the AD work in my head, and I haven't been able to afford ADs on all of my sets, so I have to schedule the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want everybody to be unhappy, so I make sure that they have breaks and lunches and all of that. Yeah, so that's kind of how I've been working, and sometimes I help coordinate or help produce, and a lot of that is involved too.
Mm-hmm. Great. I do want to ask about a little bit more background foundation building too, because you bringing up the AD background that you've AD'd sets before. I'm curious on the multiple hat aspect because it's been brought up that directing is understanding at least a little bit of what everybody's doing around you, so you can you can communicate and I'll say it again, captain, captain your ship. Captain your ship. So, I guess I'd be curious just to hear a little bit about the multiple hats that each of you have worn through, just even as a director or otherwise, what departments you've been through and a lot. Yeah.
Well, I heard you wore a lot of hats on your films too, which is kind of cool. Like,
Yes.
yeah, so you know all about that.
I can do that. I can do it if needed. Yes.
For me, typically, post is kind of like, well, on production, you know, I'll be producing / ADing my own stuff, or sometimes hanging things up, moving production design, you know, basically a lot of the hats, except sound. I'm not like, that's one thing where I'm like, no, absolutely not. And then in post, I have been able to edit and color grade, and now can do that professionally as well. As far as working professionally on other sets, mostly I'm an editor, or I live in the producing role, like under production coordinator or whatnot. So
I was gonna ask. Sorry. So no sound. Is that because you've tried sound and then you came to post and you're like, I can't hear anything, or it's peaking everywhere, or is it just?
It's just
you just knew
the math and the science of it really just
it's too much from the
goes
get.
over my head, and it doesn't land like a decibel. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't land at a decibel.
Great quote.
I actually started working in camera department. I was a camera PA for like a year, and then I realized the lenses just got bigger and bigger, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. Like, I was on one show in New York. It was like, Tina, get the Eagle. I was like, the Eagle, what's that? And it was just a lens that was like, the case is as tall as me, and rolling in the streets of New York, and I was just like, I can't do this. And this is the summer. Can you imagine winter? Kind of thing. And so, and it also at the time too, I still had aspirations to direct, and I felt that I started to gravitate towards the AD department because, like, it's still directing. It's maybe not as as creative as most people think, but it's just like, it's still communicating with other people. How to even turn left, you know, or even directing background actors on set, because a lot of like on the shows I worked on, like the background PAs would help, like, kind of like, I guess, direct the background actors to like go in the scenes and cross in the scenes. So I knew that at that time I was like, I need to work on that skill of how to communicate better and all that. So that's kind of where I started, like, camera, and then I kind of, gravitated towards that specific, I guess, department. But it's also a lot of watching other people. And I worked on a lot of major sets in New York, and it's just how they are structured, and they are a very fine line about how to do things, which is really great. It's super efficient. Work in New York if you like to, guys. But also be careful, because the weather sucks. But anyway, and it's a lot to handle, because it could rain for 20 minutes, and then it'll be like super hot in the next 3 hours or whatever it is. Anyway. But just learning from there and just watching and just understanding how each department works from that, and community, as a production assistant at the time, it's just like you get to talk to every different department, and then I guess be their therapist and see what they're complaining about on the set or whatever, and then seeing what their ideas of how to do things right, and then learning from that, and then essentially you're learning from other people's mistakes in that sense.
I gravitated towards ED just because I'm not technical, like camera, definitely not sound. I did sound like for like colleagues to films, but I pressed the button. I just but like, I'm not gonna do that on my personal. I'm hiring somebody. Editing, I have edited my stuff, but out of necessity. I definitely think other people are probably more skilled just because of the technical part. Exactly, like everything is changing. Like cameras change every few months, and like also like codecs and 4Ks, and like all just everything changes so fast. Like, it's not for me, but I can understand what a telephoto lens looks like different than a wide angle and a 50 millimeter. Like that, I need to know that. But I also I think what Tina said is very good. Like I've done background PA. It is the AD's job. Like it's not a director to direct background, but just knowing how to fill a scene and like how to see how that works, and also treating people like human beings. I have had so many background actors come to me as like, oh, like thanking me just for being a normal person and not like treating them like shit. And I think everybody on every set, but we know sometimes it doesn't happen. But like, yeah, just treat everybody well, the way you would like to be treated. I have done script supervising, so that's also a good skill to have, like really understanding continuity and like what does the editor need, that type of stuff. And producing, I mean, locations counting. I have found most of the locations of all my films. That's like, you kind of do it because you know what you want, and like you don't have money to pay somebody to really do it, so you kind of do it yourself. And hire the crew. Usually found them myself so far for my projects as well. And casting, have done it all by myself. Have not had a casting director yet, so had to do that too. Very looking forward. That's another thing. Looking forward to work with a casting director. Yeah.
Yeah. One really like we knew from the get-go, like starting through the blinds, that we all have different skill sets. Like we have two awesome ADs here, and we have actor-focused directors or actors/directors. Like I have the post background, like we have a teacher, and like we all have different valuable skill sets that we can bring to the table that complement each other. Like, I feel like that's kind of what we realize going forth. Like, oh, we all don't think the same or have the same kind of skills, which could be frightening at first. But then eventually we're like, oh, this is actually an asset. This is actually pushing us forward and like, taking one step forward at a time. It's been great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing about being so indie is that we all have to dip our feet in everything anyway. So like even if you're in school or something, when there's like a 3-person crew, I mean, you have to do everything, including sound and all that stuff. So that's all been very helpful on that. Actually, I forgot my train of thought. Okay, here we go.
And then, worst case scenario on our project Through the Blinds, like we have an AD and we have actors. But yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, I guess, let me look at all right. I was gonna ask about the awesome thing that Through the Blinds offers. Like we mentioned it's 7 women directors, all each doing a short film, combining into the one feature film. So being that it's all using the same location, my assumption, my producer brain says like, well, we can only do one short at once. So then is my gut. I don't know. I'm not a part of that. But so when a short is going, I'm curious on if there's any intention or like to dip into each other's shorts and like, hey, I'll come. I don't know if.
Oh, you mean like helping wise?
Yeah, like
yeah,
because I'm currently prepping on mine, but you're shooting yours, and you're prepping on yours, and the continued collaboration through the whole. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on everyone's life work balance during the time. And yeah, but it is like we're a support system for each other, and there's 7. So if not all 7 can join, a few of us can join on that set to hold a boom or whatever is needed at the time.
Or just say hi.
Yeah, or just say hi, or like Destiny can bring the morale up like no other. So it is something that we have been planning to do all along, is to help be there for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know it was brought up directing the Marvel movie, talking that dream. Because I know, like...
Many dreams.
No, for sure. Because I think about, like, I'm a Marvel fan. So thinking about how those movies are all kind of little episodes of the larger thing, and those directors will often hop on each other's sets. Like, what are you doing with this character? And what are you doing with over here? What is your thing? How are you handling this? So I like the idea of just being able to hop in and like poke your head in. Sounds kind of fun too.
Yeah, Yeah, and we all want each other to succeed, and also it's our film in its entirety. So like, yeah, we want it to be the best it possibly can. So like, if that means like, let's pick up the morale of this day, or like, let's like, oh, something it needs help over here, or something's like falling apart.
Can you get it at the store
Yeah.
and bring it a sec?
Will we go first? Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to do that. I know, at least for me, like for me, ADing takes a lot out
Yeah,
of
it's a
me,
lot.
and so I wouldn't want to like do like AD it's like 6 of the films and then be like, oh shoot, mine.
That's why I
like,
said worst case scenario.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully we'll be fully funded by then.
Yeah. Where are you going to go for it?
I'm pretty sure we're all very prep oriented. We're gonna prep the hell out of it. And like we said, production design is so important. It's gotta be continuous, and we're gonna have to have time to turn it around from one decade to the other. Like there's gonna be an interval in between that the production that our people can change everything up. And is that all I was gonna say? I guess so.
Okay, I feel like we're kind of there. I don't know if I'm missing anything big. I don't.
Well, the big thing is that we're still crowdfunding, and it's open for. I think we have 20 more days still, or
No, 19.
19 days. And this is just the beginning. We're just crowdfunding to get us off the ground, to get into pre-production. But we're still looking for funding. So investors, executive producers to attach, all the yada 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 things that it takes to make a film.
All the yada yada things. Well said.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess just last thought. I don't know. There may not be comments on this. It's more of just a thought. But again, I know as a creative, as a director, it is difficult sometimes to find other people that are in the hustle the same way that you are. So I imagine I don't know. I'm looking forward to. I just love what's going on here. It's so awesome. Like I'm just it's just so cool, and just thinking about having that support system is so helpful. Like I know it's hard. It's hard to find just other people that are making stuff similar to you in any capacity, the indie level, or they're also trying to push the next level, and you can support each other that way. So I think it's awesome that that this is going on, and I'm sure it's going to continue kind of probably forever. Is my that's the hope.
Yeah, we definitely agree. I think we didn't quite know how this collaboration is gonna go starting. Like it was all new to all of us, but we all like it very much. It's like it just takes a lot of pressure and like she said, complementary skills. So all the things it takes to build a directing career, to build a movie from the ground up, we kind of have it all together.
Yeah, another thing special about our project is that we set up a culture where it's really 100% consensus, where it's like we all need to agree or at least be satisfied of certain decisions when we make our big decisions. And then we'll, get each other's back whenever, like, if someone can't show up or something like that. So that type of culture of us being very collaborative, everyone has a voice, everyone, could chime in into what we could try doing something different, and like allowing that to take space, and leaning on to doing something different, or like yes, essentially we're welcoming with each other. We're all friends, we're welcoming each other, and we just kind of hope that kind of like attitude is like bleeds on to other projects, and not only within our or Through the Blinds IP or whatever, but just other, because there's just so many sets lately that are just like the director's a tyrant or whoever, and then they do all these things, or like whatever that drama they have, like we don't want to reflect that. We want to do more than just make a film. We just want to change the culture we do on set, and also what we want to represent. Like a lot of our stories, again, are from women are from underrepresented communities that a lot of society has looked past on, unfortunately, or just media in general. But we're again want to shine a light on that we're all American. We're all like we exist and we're here and
I'm
make
not
room
American.
for us. Right?
Brazilian up in here. But yeah, we I feel like we're excited too. And yeah, like Luisa was saying, we didn't know how this was gonna go. It could have been a major disaster. I mean,
Sure.
it
Sure.
could
Yeah.
have been.
You never know.
Yeah, and our personalities, and we just respect each other a lot. And we, at the end of the day, ego aside, we want to make the best thing together, and we support each other in each other's careers. Yeah.
Love it. What a lovely note to end on there, I think. Captain of the ship. I guess just lastly,
Captains, really. Captains, plural.
captains of the ships. Yeah. What is this? Is this dumb question? I was gonna say, what is multiple ships turns into a Is it a fleet? Okay. Anyway.
Trivia pursuit.
So, do you want to plug the website and the Instagram is at
Through the Blinds Film is our Instagram handle, and then Through the Blinds Anthology is our website. You can search Through the Blinds on Seed and Spark if you would like to support or follow. And yeah,
We want to get to 1,000 followers.
let's go. And then all of our handles and all of our stuff, we each have our own websites and everything. You can find them on throughtheblindsanthology.com.
Great. I don't. Okay, yeah. I'm just like second guessing myself. I feel like I'm missing something huge here, but I think we're good. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Huge. What huge are you thinking? Like
I feel like it's like I'll hit cut and then I'll be like, I never even asked what the name of the project. You know, like like that. So, but we've talked. I think we're good. I think we're good.
Well, I mean, I guess we haven't named the rest of the directors. Like Christine Juralaga, she's directing. Oh God, I already forgot the year what she's directing. 57. Oh, 1957. Well, the 50s decade. Destiny Stewart is directing the 1960s. Rebecca Louiselle is doing the 1970s with the acid trip that everyone's like excited about, and Jessica Leo is directing the 80s. So those are all our directors that who unfortunately couldn't be here today. So yeah.
And I guess I will mention, I know you're at the end of the episode already, but I also did an interview with Jessica Liu, so you can learn more about her and her project on that episode. So you can check that out. Great. I was going to say, I know this is probably not in the story. I was going to make a prediction of the acid trip, because I know you mentioned acid trip. You see a flashback potentially to a previous short. I was thinking if it saw a future short, that'd be cool too, like a fortune kind of thing. But I don't want to spoil it. Great. Okay.
Becca will answer that.
Yeah. Great. Cool.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah, we're grateful. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank
Supporting
you.
us. Yeah.
And I'm holding the mic for both of us.
I know.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thanks for being a part. Yes, that was lovely, and that's the show. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.